Hi everyone, welcome back. We are going to finish chapter 12 today and read chapter 13, so I hope you're ready. I'm very curious to figure out what Mr. Allen's going to do and what he's thinking about Bud Lawrence's big plan. Bud guessed right. Just the thought of all this made Tom shrink back uncomfortably in his chair. It was way too much fuss. Tom, let me be direct with you. As the boy's guardian, you need to do the right thing about all of this. I like to see where all this is going to go. I'm going to take some risks, spend some money, see what happens, but I need your permission. I need your signature on these trademark papers, and I need to strike a deal with you about permission to use the trademark. I know it seems like a big ruckus about a word, but we just can't tell what's to come of it unless we take some steps. Bud pointed at the papers on his desk. That's a contract, and it's fair and honest. It gives your boy 30% of whatever profits I might make. That's a fair royalty, generous for this kind of deal. So what do you say? Make sense? Let me take care of all the fuss and see if something good doesn't come of it all. The papers and a pen were there on the desk next to Tom. He looked at Bud, then reached over, picked up the pen, and signed both copies of the trademark papers and 3 copies of the contract. I've got no reason to doubt you one bit, Bud, and I sure don't want to mess with all of this myself. Is that it? He asked, standing up. Not quite, Tom. Here. Then Bud Lawrence handed Nick's dad a check for $2,250. What's this for? That's what I owe Nick for the sales of Frindles from the first 3 weeks, explained Bud with a smile. Tom looked at the check and said, This is terrific, Bud, and I'm really glad about it because it'll sure help with Nick's college. But I wish you'd just keep this between us. If Nick knew, he'd probably stop mowing lawns and I'd never get him to save another penny. So just between us, okay? Bud said, Sure, Tom, I understand, just between us, and they shook hands. Mr. Allen left Bud's office and walked across the street to the savings bank. He set up a trust account for Nick, and the bank manager said he could make arrangements with Mr. Lawrence so any other money would be deposited automatically. That sounded good to Tom Allen. If he had never heard another word about it, that would be fine. As Nick's dad walked slowly back to the hardware store, he wondered if things were ever going to be the same again in this quiet little town. End of chapter 12. Let's find out in chapter 13. Chapter 13, Ripples. But life did settle back to normal in Westfield. More leaves fell, Thanksgiving came, then the first snow, then Christmas, and more snow. Fall and winter seemed to calm everything down and drive everyone into their own houses. Things were calmer at Lincoln Elementary School, too. Frindle mania was over, but that didn't mean the word was gone. Not at all. All the kids and even some of the teachers used the new word. At first it was on purpose, then it became a habit, and by the middle of February, Frindle was just a word, like door or tree or hat. People in Westfield barely noticed it anymore, but in the rest of the country, things were happening. Frindle was on the move. In hundreds of little towns and big cities from coast to coast, kids were using the new word, and parents and teachers were trying to stop it. What had happened in Westfield happened over and over and over again. Bud Lawrence couldn't have been happier. There were Frindle shirts and sunglasses and erasers and notebooks and paper and dozens of other items. The new line of Frindles imported from Japan were a big hit, and now there was talk of selling them in Japan and Europe as well. The checks that went into Nick's trust fund got bigger and bigger. Bud opened his own factory in Westfield to make Frindle baseball caps, which created a job for 22 people. And in March, the town council voted to put a little sign on the post below the town's name along Route 302. It said, Home of the Original Frindle. And Mrs. Granger, she seemed to have given up, or perhaps she had been ordered to. No one knew. Her poster with the forbidden word had quietly disappeared from the bulletin board, and kids were not staying after school writing sentences anymore. It was business as usual, except for one thing. Everyone in 5th grade got at least one word wrong on his or her spelling test each week. Every word, the first word on the top of Mrs. Granger's list was pen, and then each Friday during the spelling test, each kid spelled it Frindle. Nick was sort of a celebrity for a while. Everyone had seen him on the Late Night Show, and on Good Morning America, and 2 or 3 other TV shows. John and Chris and all his friends kept asking about what it was like to ride in a limousine. After a week or 2, though, it was old news, and everyone seemed to forget it and move on. The only person who couldn't quite forget about everything was Nick. And here's a sign that says, "Welcome to Westfield, home of the original Frindle." So that is it for chapter 13. I hope you're enjoying our story. Let's continue with chapter 14 another time. I hope you guys are doing well and are enjoying our story. Bye, guys.